demonstrate the cerebrum. This is the base of the brain. This is the interpeduncular fossa on the base of the brain. Its boundaries and contents have been mentioned before. It should be noted that the contents of the interpeduncular fossa form the floor of the third ventricle, and it is a part of the hypothalamus. And one should remember that the circle of Willis lies in this fossa. These are the two cerebral hemispheres, which are separated from each other by the longitudinal fissure, which lodges the falx cerebri. Each hemisphere has three surfaces and three poles. The surfaces are the superolateral, the medial, and the inferior surfaces. The inferior surface is divided into a tentorial part posteriorly in relation to the tentorium cerebelli, and an orbital part anteriorly in relation to the roof of the orbit. The three poles are frontal, temporal, and occipital poles. Each hemisphere is divided into 4 lobes by 3 lines. One line corresponds to the central sulcus, and this line separates the frontal lobe in front from the parietal lobe behind. The second line extends from the parieto-occipital sulcus down to the pre-occipital notch, which is a notch on the inferolateral border, about 3 centimeters in front of the occipital pole. This imaginary line separates the parietal lobe from the occipital lobe. The third line is the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus and separates the temporal lobe below it from both the parietal and the frontal lobes above. For the purpose of more clarification, the lines separating the lobes of the cerebrum from each other are demarcated by red lines. This is the central sulcus, and this is the frontal lobe. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus, and the line extended from it to the pre-occipital notch. And this is the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus, and its backward extension. This is the parietal lobe behind the central sulcus. This is the temporal lobe below the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus. And this is the occipital lobe behind the line of the parieto-occipital sulcus.